Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Gascally Stamos from GearWorks.com and the E2KG Network podcasting channel here on YouTube. We are back with another episode of What's Your Issue? Your People's Weekly Comic Book Reviews podcast. Here with me, as always, is my intrepid co-host, Mr. Stephen Laura. How you doing, Stephen?
I'm doing great.
Great. We are here. It's Turkey Week, Thanksgiving week. We contemplated, we
Yes.
thought, considered whether or not we should lay off the week like a lot of other podcasts are doing, but we know that you read your comics last week, those comics that shipped the shipping week of 14 November 2018, and that you will be picking up another stack out there this week. And we thought, they need a little commentary to go in between that new comic book day sandwich. So let's go ahead and give it to them and not back up our listeners and viewers, because we know that you're out there. We see the metrics. We're looking at the analytics, and we know that, amazingly enough, faster than we expected, there are people pulling down this show and listening to it each week and even wandering by the YouTube channel and giving it a gander. So that's good. So we want to keep those water pumps pumping water. And so we're going to talk comic books tonight. We're going to lead off the review segment. I'm pretty excited about this one with Stephen talking about Star Wars Dr. Aphra number 26. Stephen, take it away.
Okay, I'll take it away. So yeah, this the writer of the book is Simon Spurr, and the artist is Emilio Lasso. And this story is continuing the last issue. It's when Dr. Aphra and Triple Zero are having a bomb on their heads from Dr. Cornelius Azaran. I think that's how you say his last name, but yeah, they still have the bomb on their heads, and they decided to try to find a doctor who could remove the bomb that's attached to both heads. And they find the doctor, but um after they find the doctor pretends that he had removed the bombs from their heads, and Dr. runs ahead of Triple Zero, and Triple Zero ends up killing the doctor, and Dr. Aphra finds out that the doctor had tricked them, and he actually worked with the other doctor, Dr. Cornelius, and apparently he didn't remove the bombs. He actually made the bombs set a quicker bomb time. So now I think they have like 7 hours to figure out how to get the bombs out of their heads, else the thing will blow up. So yeah, it's it was pretty interesting. I did really enjoy this book. I gave it a 8.5, and I did enjoy the conversations that Triple Zero and Dr. Alfred had, and they were arguing with each other because apparently one thing um that Triple Zero's obsessed with, he's obsessed with killing, and he doesn't know when to stop that obsession with killing someone. And he even mentioned that he wanted to kill the doctor afterwards, and she argued with him not to kill the doctor throughout the whole time, and then in the end he ends up killing the doctor. And it's just I just like that they were able to talk about people that we found out that Triple Zero does care about BT, which is like R2D2 droid. There's like an evil version, and Dr. Cornelius had killed him, and Dr. Alfred knows that he actually cares about that robot, even though Triple Zero likes to deny that he cares about anybody. So that's interesting to see, and to see a human side from a droid. That was pretty interesting. So yeah, it was a nice element for the characters to talk to each other and get to know each other more, even though they don't like each other. I really like that dynamic, and the art was still good, and I still enjoyed it.
So you give this book an 8.0. I personally gave this book a 6.5, and I want to talk a little bit
Oh,
about.
go
I want,
ahead.
I want to talk a little bit about my problems with it. So now Kieran Gillen was doing this book, wasn't he?
Yeah, but they changed the writer because Carrie Gilliam had to do Star Wars.
Right. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I feel like the book and Gillen was the one who was so he did the first Darth Vader volume, right?
Yes.
And then Dr. Aphra came out of that. He did this for a little while and then took over the Star Wars series. So there's a couple problems I have with this. So first of all, I thought the art was very sharp, particularly the colors. I was really impressed by
Yeah, the colors are interesting too.
and this is Rochelle Rosenberg, who to me is kind of the I feel like it might be slighting her a little bit. I think of her in my head as like the new Jordi Belair, where it seems like half the Marvel books are being done by Jordi Belair. Well, there was a time when almost all the Marvel books were being done by Jordi Belair,
Yeah.
and now a large part of them, you see Rochelle Rosenberg doing a large chunk of them. But beautiful colors. I especially like on the first page how she has a 4-panel green, 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 red, which just really, I mean, red is a beautiful intermix with green. It's Christmas colors. So, but I love when BT like lights the guy up with his electrostatic shock that that all of a sudden the green haze goes to a very sharp red. It's a really nice effect. Uh, Very good art overall, as you mentioned by Laiso. Um, but I had some problems with the writing here. Number one, um, Dr. Aphra seems particularly frightened of 000 to the point where she's like stammering through a lot of her sentences, and I don't like that. I feel like that's a discredit to her character, that it makes her seem overly like she can't even put a sentence together in front of this.
Well, she was like that with Darth Vader, and I guess at the same time she's scared of. I guess she has the same fear of Darth Vader with 000.
But I feel like we've seen her around 000 before where she hasn't been like this. This feels like a regression from the way she normally approaches anybody who's a threat to her other than Vader. And I feel like with Vader, if you're gonna do okay, he's like the one, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it just, I don't know, it felt like it was overly marginalizing of how her character would be in these moments. Like I don't feel like that's the character. Um, and so this, in addition to just making it like kind of hard to read, right? Um, so there's some points in the art here where where Laiso does do like this scene where like the penal ship or whatever is kind of been destroyed and there's debris floating, that it's hard to tell exactly what's going on in that scene. And so I felt like the storytelling wasn't quite as tight as I would have liked. But overall, that was my main problem with it, was just Dr. Aphra felt particularly out of character. Overall, I still liked it, but I just felt like those were a couple of things that detracted from my complete enjoyment of the comic.
I remember this one time that 000 did torture her so you could get the information of his memories back
Right,
then.
right, right,
So I'm
right.
not sure that torture actually scared
If
the
that
crap
if
out of
that
her.
stuck with her,
Yeah.
a little almost PTSD like.
Yeah, that's what I probably think is that's what it is.
Okay. Yeah, and I could see that if she's someone he almost like an abusive relationship, right? Where
Yeah.
when that person is in the presence of their abuser, right, that all their confidence kind of melts away. Yeah, and in that case, maybe a tiny bit of exposition to convey that would have helped, but I don't know. It is what it is. Like I said,
Okay.
6.5 for me is not a horrible book. That's still a solid, professionally done comic. It's just one that didn't particularly, that's this is not, and it's almost a shame, right? Like this is not, this is of course was a drop in issue for me. This is not an issue that would have made me on board with the book and put it in my recurring pull list. Whereas I have read issues along with you that you've read of Dr. Aphra in the past, and I was like, ah, man, I kind of feel bad that this isn't in my pull list, but it's fine.
Okay.
Miss Marvel, number 36. Published by Marvel, subtitled Silk Road. Story by G. Willow Wilson, art by Nico Leone, and color by Ian Herring. So this issue opens up with Kamala Khan and Bruno on the roof of a building, which is kind of a classic Marvel setup. But the page opens and they're on the roof, the camera closes in, and I'm like, seriously, we're doing this again? Like, we just had 6 issues of her
time travel again.
We've resolved this, right? This is a book that literally made me angry.
Yes,
to read
I
this
agree.
week.
I didn't like. I was pretty pissed off reading this one too.
Right. So we're still sorting out the relationship between Kamala Khan and Bruno, who recently returned from Wakanda after a seemingly forever long misadventure with the Shocker, possibly the biggest bum of a villain in the Marvel Universe. We go in for a close-up on the roof of a building in New York to have a quiet moment between these two characters who have already spent every issue since the oversized annual or whatever it was, dreamily half talking about their feelings for each other. And then to top it all off, we then cut to what can only be an imaginary flashback scene, meaning one of the characters is imagining it because they don't have any knowledge of these events as facts. There weren't any nods to this as far as I know, and maybe I'm wrong. There may have been like one panel that showed this past history in the Shocker arc where Bruno could see scenes with Kamala in them through time, but that arc lasted too long, and now I don't remember it. If you had followed up with these flashback scenes immediately after that, that would have been a thing. So on art, there's something a bit more likable about the Nico Leone, Ian Herring artwork this month on this book, because we're going to talk about Nico Leone again in a way that is not pleasing to me. There is something a touch more evolved and mature in this issue, though. I've not been taking a shine to the art over the last few issues because I feel like there are times when it veers too far in the direction of cartoony anime, and I feel like Miss Marvel's story is more mature than that treatment conveys. First of all, the cover on this is beautiful. Friend of the show, Joseph Malazzi, friend of the network, Mr. Joseph Malazzi, creator and showrunner and producer on the television series Dark Matter, had this on his blog as one of the most beautiful covers in comics this week. But of course, it's not Leone and Herring who did that cover. It's a different artist. So, but also let me say that I'm a little bit more synced up on Herring's colors. Overall, when I talk about this art not quite falling in my wheelhouse, Herring's colors I'm generally okay with. It's really Leone's pencil treatment that I'm not so on board with. There is some neat panel work in here with several pages of angled panels as insets and overlays on larger, more germane panels, and that did help keep things moving along. While I've previously given Herring much praise for doing so much with a very constrained color palette, after a lot of issues of this, it's starting to wear a bit thin. But in this, at least with the flashback, the creative team lifted whatever embargo they apparently have on the use of any color outside the brown and green spectrum, except for Kamala's costume. So it was nice that, they mixed in some blues and some reds in this issue that weren't just on Kamala's costume. And it was nice to get to see Herring play with those colors. On the story side, the real detractor in this issue is, again, more so the story. I felt like this issue was entirely superfluous and unnecessary. The flashback scene was extremely unnecessary. The only real storytelling panels that mattered were the opening and closing panels set in the now, and I could even peel that back to just the closing panels. For those panels alone, this book keeps its head above water and is saved from being dropped from my recurring pulls list. Outside of those pages, I just didn't feel like this story was interesting, complex, or nuanced. This creative team has done that level of work, so they've done creative, nuanced, sophisticated work. But it just feels like it's not happening right now. At no other time have I felt like this comic is as much a teen soap opera as it has been since the annual or anniversary issue of this summer. I'm not sure if we need a new creative team or if the current team just needs a major shot in the arm. I'm going to come back to that as well. I scored this book a 7.0 out of 10. In summary, I really feel like Miss Marvel is a very special character in the Marvel Universe, and she deserves a really special story. This last arc has not been that, outside of the reveal of how she embiggens. While the last few panels in this issue save this book from being dropped, it is on the watch list for me to fall away from it. While there eventually needs to be a tale of how Kamala deals with and handles love, I'm not certain that we need that tale right now, and I'm not certain that the lack of chemistry that seems to exist between her and Bruno, as I feel it being conveyed, really elicits the desired emotion that such an arc should. We need to move on and come back to this topic at a time when the creative team can do a better job with it. Miss Marvel is not a common character, and she needs more than a common teenage angst love story. Now, I don't read all of like the solicits and the inside trades and all the news and stuff because generally I don't want to know until like I just open up an issue and see it. I am curious as to whether or not we are about to get a creative team change because apparently G. Willow Wilson, who I'm very surprised is not exclusive to Marvel. I would have thought with Kamala Khan being like the hottest new IP at Marvel from the last few years, that the writer on that would have been exclusive. She apparently is not. And she is going to be taking over as the writer on DC's Wonder Woman. And I'm thinking that
I read it. I didn't like it.
Okay.
Go ahead, but
and I'm wondering, Wonder Woman feels like a comic that you can't be doing Wonder Woman in DC and Miss Marvel in Marvel workload wise. Because of course I'm sure DC will want her on, events and other things that involve, and pitching in with the Justice League desk when they spin special issues. So I'm curious to see if we're going to get a new creative team or some shuffling of staff on Miss Marvel. Did you happen to read this issue, Stephen?
yeah, I hated it. I think I want to drop Miss Marvel after this.
Okay, so we're pretty much.
I give it a 5. It just
okay.
It just didn't make sense to me because it's just weird. They talk about ancestry past, and it's like, oh, they talk about Miss Marvel's ancestors, and they talk about her best friend's like ancestors and Bruno's ancestors. It's like, no, that's not possible.
Right.
You can't. Your friends cannot meet your friends' ancestors. It just doesn't work. That's not how things work, and it's just weird because they're supposed to be in the Middle East, and there's like it bothered me like there's a white character there and there's a black character there in the Middle East, and it's like I don't know that's possible in the ancient times of Middle East that there was actually whites and blacks and Middle Easterns all cool with each other.
Yeah,
like, they had some great friendship for a very long time.
Well, of course, I say this on the heel of the It's Another Thing movies crew, having just finished watching or going back and revisiting Kevin Costner's Robin Hood, and so I guess I overlaid my recency with that on top of this. It felt like it was like a caravan. Well, they said it was the Silk Road, right? So they were in China, or somewhere in the Khanate, because this would have been the time of Kublai Khan, or his ancestor Kublai Khan or his descendant, because Dave Pecci, who's my partner on the Gifted podcast, on the It's Another Thing podcast, he and I used to watch Marco Polo, and so Marco Polo takes place in the time of the Silk Road in China. So they're apparently going through there, and then I think you would have had mixed caravans because you would have had a lot of companies operating out of Europe who would have been trying to truck goods in and out of China, but then would have also been picking up all sorts of hangers-on along the way, and you had these weird eclectic parties kind of assembled conducting trade. So that didn't so much throw me off, but I like, and to fill it out, so they, and I should have mentioned it at the top of the thing. I always forget unless I specifically write it down. This is a spoilery reviews show. We will be talking about the comics. We will be revealing details about the comics. We will not be shying away from much about the comics because we have to talk about those things in order to do reviews. So if you haven't read your comics, you should have by now. It's Monday night. We deliberately record this late so that we try to give everybody a chance to read their comics before they pop up to listen to the podcast. But to fill out some of the details, so they're talking about, oh, well, maybe our ancestors, blah, blah, blah. And then they do this like fade to flashback, and they're like Steven said, they're on the Silk Road in the Mongolian Empire, escorting some ladies, of which Kamala is one, on a trade caravan, and then they run across apparently what is an Inhuman fighting a Skrull.
Yeah.
And then Bruno, who's or Bruno's ancestor, supposedly, I guess, and this other guy that they're with, this other knight that they're with, charge in to try and break up the fight. So I don't know. I think I just didn't need this. And I mean, I'm pretty sure
And
we. Yeah, go ahead.
it doesn't make, they didn't need to have all her friends' ancestors in there. It was just a love story between her great grandmother and her great grandfather. They just need
Right.
to put those two characters in a scene where they will fall in love with each other, because it doesn't make sense that all your friends' ancestors gonna know your friends' ancestors. It's not possible, I think.
Yeah. It's totally a filler issue. Like, it doesn't do anything to advance the relationship between her and Bruno. It doesn't do anything to advance her character. And I'm like, we had a full. I'm pretty certain. I would have to go back and look, but I feel like, as I was reading, I'm like, I'm pretty sure we got a full 6-issue arc of her in that Shocker mess. And I'm like, and we got to go. We're gonna do a 7th issue of this now instead of just bleed straight into the new arc. Like, I don't get it. So
And
I
I
actually,
don't want I don't want Bruno to be going out with Miss Marvel, because he said he didn't have feelings for her, and now all of a sudden he does, and it
yeah,
just like irritates me.
I'm like, let's move on. Um, the comic, not us, but we are gonna move
Yeah.
on. So, third comic in the review rundown segment this week is Fantastic Four #3. So, writer Dan Slott, and here we go. Artists Sarah Pacelli and Nico Leon. Now, they don't list exactly what their duty split was on this, so I don't know if Nico did certain pages or panels, or if one did pencils and one did inks. There is a color artist listed, a Marte Gracia, and letters by Joe Caramagna. Cover artist Esad Ribic, and this is a gorgeous cover. Esad, to me, is kind of like, he's like my, like when you see when I see an Alex Ross cover, like you can clearly tell that that's an Alex Ross cover, and that's a comic that I'm like, you should get that just for the cover. Esad is like the number 2, right? Like when I see an Esad Ribic color now, I feel like I can A, recognize it, and B, I'm like, that's a thing you need to get. So, gorgeous cover, I love it. So this is the follow-up to the getting back together of the band issue. At the end of issue #2, Reed had called in every single member of the Fantastic Four that had ever existed. And so you get a big splash page, family reunion. The thing is subtitled Family Reunion. You get a big splash page. And this comic is a lot about Reed just outthinking. I can't remember the character's, the bad person's name. Trying to find it in here. He calls her out by name, I think, at the beginning. But you know, he's the premise is that that she has been talking to Reed for a very long time, and when Reed had gotten close to the Griever, is her name, when Reed was getting close to figuring out her secret or finding a solution or whatever in his younger years, and this is apparently the panel, he has a Fantastic Four shirt on, so this is apparently after they had gone through the transformation, that she started kind of whispering in his ear and causing him, you know, insecurities and things to kind of get him off the trail. I guess what the main thing I love about this book is, number one, it's just Reed Richards just outthinking a big bad evil in the cosmos, which is awesome. That's like why you love having Reed Richards, and we've gone so long without having that in the Marvel universe. So there's that. The other thing is that it's very Justice League like. This is exactly the type of thing that kind of Snyder is doing on Justice League, where you have this menagerie of characters, and therefore it's just a big sandbox and you get to play. So there's the female Thing in here, who I don't really know or understand who she is. But they call Wolverine back. By the way, absolutely complete disregard for any sense of continuity in this. Like, you know, completely disregard the fact that Peter Parker should be involved in Spider-Geddon. That I don't even know if Medusa is available anymore with the death of the Inhumans, or that she would have been particularly pissed had she been pulled away from that crisis. You get Herbie the robot showing up in here. the thing that we're going to talk about a lot is kind of how Dan Slott writes it. And one of the bits that's going on in here is apparently, and I don't know if this happened in a cartoon or something, but there was a point where Iceman was part of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, that was weird. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, based on the dialogue, I assume that it happens in something. The inside joke is that it's something that happened not quite exactly within Marvel continuity, and somehow the Human Torch and Iceman are aware of that, kind of almost in a fourth wall kind of way, and so the two of them are constantly bickering back and forth about how Bobby shouldn't be there because when he was a member of the Fantastic Four, it wasn't in continuity. So I thought that was pretty funny. You get Crystal in here. And you get some pretty significant size threats. Power Man, I think Jessica Jones is in here, but she doesn't ever really has any talking parts. I love the Future Foundation because I actually read Power Pack when I was a kid. It actually debuted, like the number one issue came out when I was reading comics as a kid, and so the Future Foundation is kind of an extension of that. When Franklin Richards, became part of Power Pack for a while. There's a great scene in here where Franklin is having a loss of confidence, and the Fantastic Four, are all trying to talk to him and explain to him, like, you don't have to be perfect. We're with you. You can do this, blah, blah, blah. Spider-Man shows up to try and says, hey, can I have a shot at talking to him? And starts to give him the with great power comes great responsibility speech. And Ben Grimm just interrupts him and grabs him by the back of his costume and like lifts him away.
Yeah, I did like that.
Yeah.
I'm the Uncle Ben here. Like,
right.
this guy's too.
Yeah. So what's so great about this issue, it is very much a callback issue and very much a revisiting of all the things in the Marvel universe that we've all come to fall in love with and that are fun. It's truly a revisitation of and a nod towards the Fantastic Four truly being the first family of Marvel. And then there's a cutaway scene where I forget what the daughter's name is, but where Reed and Sue's daughter has been detached to go off and do some mission on her own. And I think Torch is trying to fly to get to her to do backup. And inside a spaceship where the rest of the members of the battle can't see, the Hulk has also shown up. Who it seems like he shouldn't be there either. And he mentions to the girl, he's like, "Don't tell anyone that I was here. Just tell them that you did this. You get the credit." So it's weird in that it seems like this is Intelligent Hulk from Immortal Hulk. However, he's also trying to be on the lam, and he doesn't want anybody to know that he's there. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well. But also, again, a nice nod to the Hulk having been a member of the Fantastic Four. Story-wise, this has all the things in it. There's a little bit of the dad humor that Dan Slott gets accused of writing with, and there are some jokes here that felt like, and I am a dad, and there's some jokes in here, and I'm like, oof, man, that's rough, man. If you were doing stand-up, you might be getting booed off the stage right now with a couple of those. But still, overall, fairly, I mean, a pretty solid, almost great comic. The one knock I have is, and again, it's hard for me to track down who does what. There are some interesting artistic choices that I didn't particularly align with. The Thing is drawn very kind of fat. He's not. I mean, he's just really bulky, and maybe he shouldn't look, like Superman with Rock's plate about him, but he just looks like kind of like the Blob with rocky plates, and I didn't feel like that was an artistic choice that I would have necessarily done. In fact, there are a lot of characters. It seems like characters are either really slim or really chunky, with very no nuance in between. And granted, now this is a comic where it's a challenge for an artist, and it's maybe why Nico Leone got brought in, is because you've got like 30 plus past members of the Fantastic Four, and you've got to pull that off, drawing all of them. I get it. But I just felt like there were some really glaring choices that like were just a little jarring. I'd go back to talk about the Dan Slott humor. There's a point where Ben, in order to get Franklin Richards pumped up, goes to punch the Griever and yells out, "It's clobbering time." That I don't count as a dad joke, because I'm like, that's classic Ben Grimm, and you need to do that when you're getting the band back together. So that I was fine with. There were a few others that I wasn't crazy about. But yeah, there's just, like I said, the Human Torch comes off two different ways. He's kind of like the classic Human Torch, not with the hatch lines, vertical lines through, but just as a classic, like, man on fire kind of thing. But then there's a version where he's drawn where he looks a little bit more like the craggy Iceman Bobby Drake kind of character, except drenched in fire. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a choice I would have made. The way Reed Richards' face is drawn, where it's like this severely gaunt, but very detailed face. It's just, there's just some off-putting art choices in here. And since I've been fine with Sarah Pacelli's art up until now, I can only think that it has something to do with Leon being injected into the mixture. But again, that's kind of where I squared up with it. So at the end of the day, I gave this issue a 7.5. It was just a bit shy of grayness. Drop the dad jokes, clean up the art just a tad, and you've got an 8.0 or above book. Steven, did you read this at all?
Yeah, I did. I gave it a 7.5 as well, because the art was pretty bad, and it kind of affected the story a lot. And there's a lot. I understand why there was a lot of characters, but the art didn't express it well. And and I forgot to tell you that Medusa did survive Death of a Human, so it's okay for her to be there.
Well, I knew she had survived, but it again, the jarring part of this is, what I mean, because Death of the Humans #5 and the wrap up was just last week.
Yeah.
So again, just it feels like that maybe is a time that you don't want to be ripped away from,
yeah,
surviving, But again, this kind of dispenses with any notion of continuity, and it's fine. It's a fun comic. It's a big adventure romp. Good combat scenes. So overall, pretty solid. And again, a 7.5 on a recurring book, and particularly one that I'm on. What I really want most out of a book that's on my recurring pull list is I want 7.5s. I want a book to steadily deliver me 7.0s and 7.5s, and then give me that upswell 8 to 8.5 book, once an arc, and then maybe once a year land a 9.0. Because what I don't want is books, I feel like books that land 9.0s all the time, like I just don't know how you maintain that. And then when you fall off of that into what for the rest of the comic book industry would be like the above average norm, then everybody goes, that issue was horrible. And I'm like, no, that issue is like head and shoulders above and equivalent with what Scott Snyder is doing or whatever, but you just got used to these 9.0 issues, so this book is perfectly fine with me. Again, this is on my recurring pull list. I'm not getting off this book anytime soon over this issue. I look forward to, I guess they're going to be back on Earth, in the Earth dimension or whatever, next issue. I guess it ends with a hug.
I think this is it.
Yeah. So looking forward to getting back to getting the Fantastic Four back in the Baxter Building. It will be fairly interesting.
Yeah.
So, Steven, talk to me about Scooby Apocalypse #31.
All right. Scooby Apocalypse is by Keith Griffin, and the artist is Patrick Offaly. So yeah, this issue is coming with Daphne and Scrappy Doo finds out that Fred is alive, and they're trying to fight him off, and he has but Fred, he tries to tell Daphne to stop fighting him because he's not, he has a conscience, and he he's not like the other monsters where the other monsters have no conscious thought. They just, I guess, feral, but he's not feral, and he actually have a thoughts of his own and try to like tell her that he's still the same Fred, and he tells the he tells Daphne that we gotta team up with each other and make this world a better place, and he knows what Velma and her brothers are trying to do, and Daphne still doesn't believe him, and she thinks he's just a monster, and he's just continue to fight each other, and it just goes real crazy. And there's also some interaction with Velma and Shaggy, because Velma's getting stressed out because there are two people that, like, her secretaries, she told them to have a mind of their own, like that, she doesn't have to tell them everything, but now they actually do have a mind of their own, and she's getting annoyed with that. And it's just funny how Shaggy reminds her, this is what you wanted, so you can't complain. And she realizes that, yeah, she can't complain, this is what she wanted from them. And I thought that was pretty funny. And another thing I did find out is that the person that Scrappy Doo is working with, he's like talking on a intercom, like on his headset, is one of Velma's brothers that worked with her on the monster project. And that brother is trying to revive another brother that, he's like Donald Trump personality type of character. And yeah, now that character's being revived, and apparently the two brothers are also working with Freddy, and apparently Freddy and Scrappy Doo have no idea they were working for the same person, and they're making Fred and Scrappy Doo definitely fight each other on purpose. So it's a pretty interesting things going on. There's a lot of plot twists and a lot of conflict, and I like how it's meshing all together, and it's brings a very pretty interesting issue for me. So I give this an 8.5. Go ahead.
No, that's good. I was just going to tell you whenever you're ready, you can, because I don't have any questions on that. I guess I dropped off that series with issue, maybe just at issue 29, and just haven't gone back to it. But it was warming up to be something good. So it sounds like you're saying when they do find Fred, he is not just a complete mindless zombie. He is something more than that.
He actually has a mind.
Okay.
He's still the same Fred, I think.
All right. Very cool. Daughters of the Dragon, #1.
All right. So yeah, and I also did like the art in that book too. It's been the same. It hasn't changed. But yeah, Daughters of the Dragon is the writer is Jed McKay, and the artist is Trevor Foreman. And this is all part of the Marvel Digital original series. So it's out digitally right now, but it's not out in print yet. But this issue talks about there's a news report with there's a news report about children missing in like some type of desert, and Colin went to go investigate where these kids have been missing, and she finds a group of kids, and the group of kids are they're telling Colin the same thing. They're saying that a whole bunch of kids are being captured and they're missing, and they never like their parents are looking for them, and so they're friends of those kids that are missing, and they decides to help. And Colin ends up finding the person that is kidnapping the kids, and it's like some old man that wants to he's like he wants to become a young person again, so he's like draining all their youth so he can actually become young again. And Colin Wing ends up fighting him, and she ends up like getting intoxicated with some psychedelic drug, and she just can't see things clear correctly, and she calls Misty Knight in order to help her, and Misty Knight ends up arriving, and they defeat the villain, and the issue ends with that there's another villain behind all this kidnapping. Like the villain that they fought wasn't the main villain. That villain was working for somebody else, and that person was in the restaurant. This was in the same restaurant as Colin Wing and Missy Knight, but she had no idea that she was there. They had no idea that she was there as well. So I guess we'll find out the next issue what happens. But yeah, I really did enjoy this, and the art. I didn't like the art in the beginning of the issue, but once it got to like the psychedelic, like when Colin Wing was shot with some type of drug and she was high of her mind, the artist was able to draw that really well, and it changed my opinion of the artist. And I noticed that the artist does that part really well. I think Travel Foreman knows how to draw when a person's real high and can't see straight. Like I like the colors in the book as well. It was really interesting.
All right, man. Very cool.
And I give this a 8.0.
Okay.
Score. Okay.
All right. Cool. All right. Now, are you able to hear me right now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Why? Something was off your headset?
I wasn't sure if I missed the power button versus the mute button. So, so the final book in the review segment this week was Plastic Man #6. Now I'm going to go through my shtick, but Steven, I definitely need you to fill this out because you read the whole miniseries, right?
Yeah, I did, but I didn't enjoy it.
Okay. So, Plastic Man is a book subtitled To the Moon and Back. This is issue #6 of a 6-part miniseries, which I didn't realize that when I grabbed this as my ad hoc pick from Steven's read list and threw it on mine. Writer Gail Simone, artist by Adriana Mello, colorist Kelly Fitzpatrick, letters by Simon Boland. So this has always been a weird thing to me, and I meant to go spelunk and look this up. I've never understood the reason for Plastic Man to exist in the DC universe. I've never understood why you would have both him and the Elongated Man. That seems highly unnecessary. Now the weird thing is Plastic Man differs from the Elongated Man, who can actually just stretch out parts of his body, kind of a lot like Mr. Fantastic, whereas Plastic Man can actually take on the appearance of like another human being, which goes along with his background as a con artist or grifter, which is an archaic term which he uses to apply to himself in this comic. But I like it because it's period, and so that's neat. Yeah, I'm reading up a little bit on him, just really quick on Wikipedia, which I meant to do earlier. So apparently he was an acquisition hero, originally being published in Quality Comics, and then later being acquired by DC. So at any rate, this comic is a lot about, as you would expect, wrapping up the miniseries, but it's specifically kind of, from a character perspective, it's him resolving who he is, who he was as a person, as a man, as a parent, versus who he is as Plastic Man, and kind of settling that out and setting a new status quo for who he's going to be from this point forward. So as I mentioned, he refers to himself as a grifter. So one of the things is he exhibits. So talk about story and art. Art here is fine. It's not stylistically what I personally like. However, I felt tonally it was right in sync with kind of what Plastic Man is, because Plastic Man is probably the closest thing that the DC universe has to a Deadpool. Just in terms of he's always cracking wise. He's a very comedic character. He's written in similar voice to the way the 1980s cartoon was, where he was just a completely silly individual, and they've amassed a pretty silly set of villains against him as well. Some of the off-putting things in the issue and why it didn't ring entirely true to me is I couldn't quite nail down the how smart he is, and reconciling that with some things he appeared to not be knowledgeable about. But like, there's a point where he displays a very thorough knowledge and awareness of the human brain, and exactly, when he's shrunken down, like, things he could poke in one of the villains' brains to make them go catatonic, things like that. And he also, I think he displayed an advanced knowledge of like electronics and computers at one point, and just figuring out how to mold his own features into somebody else's face is a slightly intellectual activity, as he's trying to nail down the exact replica of who that person is. Some weird villains that were assembled in here. This is not a parade of chumps, because he's got Dr. I think it's Hugo in the comics, Hugo Strange there. He's got a mind control alien who I think I'm supposed to know, but I can't remember.
It's Dr. Psycho.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And you've got I can't remember what her name is, Bumblebee or whatever.
Yeah, it's Queen Bee. Yeah,
Queen Bee, right, as one of the villains in here. So not a set of villains to be trifled with in this comic. But overall, it was a pretty good read. I was tempted to rate it actually a little bit higher, but for me, I felt like it didn't quite stick the landing that I was hoping for. And again, part of the problem is, he jarringly goes back and forth between, different scenes and like things that he's thinking of versus the way things are in the present and now. At the end of the day, I gave this book a 7.0 out of 10. It was fine for me reading it. It's not necessarily something that I would go back to whenever his next series reboots. But I'm, fine having a little more knowledge of who he is, the next time I see him on a page of the Justice League. So, Steven, did you read this issue?
Yeah, I gave it a 6.5 because I don't like the humor is really off-putting, and I don't think Gail Simone could do humor, to be honest.
Yeah, and very antiquated humor, right? So it's humor, and it's written as if it's like 1970s or 1980s kind of humor.
Yeah, and I don't know, but I don't like how Gail Simone's using this slang with wang, because I found out the word means penis. Like, it's a slang for penis, and she did reference that in the first issue, but it's like Plastic Man uses it thinking that it means wrong, and it's like every time he uses it, it's just the sentence doesn't make sense, and the joke becomes very off-putting. Like, it just makes jokes fall flat.
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely.
And
No
it
doubt.
seems like to me, Gail Simone was trying to stay relevant to what kids are into today, especially with the child not knowing what sex he is, and it just got annoying.
Right.
With that stuff.
Right. So anything else that you want to talk about this issue? Because I'm pretty much done with it.
No, I just didn't like the humor, and I tried to enjoy it. There were sometimes it was funny and sometimes it wasn't. It's just it kept going back and forth. I didn't like some issues. I did like some issues. I didn't know what to decide for this series, to be honest.
Well, and that was my problem. That was my problem with this issue. I think this issue itself kind of goes back and forth between, points of humor, and it's like there's chunks of it that aren't written in a comedic voice, and then chunks of it that are, and you have this sense of whimsy where kind of everything's funny the whole time.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what they want out of it, but that's not how it's actually put together. So yeah, I had some problems kind of choking this one down as
And I
well.
noticed it didn't finish the story because you see the female villain that was
Right.
there, and
Yeah, clearly setting him up though for either an ongoing or for that story to be told. Like,
it might not even be told. So it's like, to me, what's the point?
right, right.
I doubt Plastic Man is a very high selling comic.
No, right. Yeah, exactly. So that wraps up our review segment. Let's turn and burn through the rest of the show. The best thing that I read this week for me was Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man number 312. So this is issue number 2. After I'm having a hard time thinking. After Chip Zdarsky left the book, who incidentally I saw announced on Twitter that he will now be writing Daredevil. Very excited to see that because I feel like Chip Zdarsky is a writer who is hitting this inflection point of his career where he is doing something different than what he is known for, I think. And often, as is often the case when that happens, that is resulting in a really nice thing that lots of people should go experience. So in this issue, this is the continued fight / running away from Morlun, the most dangerous of the inheritors. This obviously integrates with, Spider-Geddon and all the other Spider stuff that's going on. So written by Sean Ryan, pencils and inks by Juan Frigeri, colorist Jason Keith, and letters by Travis Lanham. Overall, I felt like this was another great issue, and I chalked up Zdarsky's final issue as being one of the best comics that I'd read the whole year. This isn't quite that, and this creative team seems to be hyper focusing on writing a big action adventure title, which I'm fine with. It is not kind of dripping with a lot of the emotional stuff that Zdarsky was writing on his way out the door. It is beautifully colored. There's all sorts of shading in Central Park and some other places. I can't remember what it was. There was one comic that I was going to call out for, and maybe it was on Titans. Some incredibly detailed art on that as well. This isn't quite as detailed, but I actually like more so what it's doing with the colors and kind of some of the abstractions of like the backdrops, like the trees and cars and some other things. You can kind of see this bokeh effect when the camera draws in for portrait work. We get a lot of Miles Morales, and I can't tell you how much I love that black and red costume of his. And you get him trying to help Peter out, but at the end, what Peter tries to do is fake. I may be reading that wrong. He's chased kind of into the zoo, and he's setting Morlun up. There's several ways of them like trying to slow Morlun down by blowing him up, and some other very destructive ways. And at the end of the day, it's all a play to give them time to get to the tranquilizer room because, like I said, they're trapped in the zoo, so that they can get a hold of, I don't know, 85 tons of tranquilizer or something like that. Spidey mentions to Miles how he needs him to leave. There's this kind of passing of the baton page, which I really liked, where Spidey says, I'm in no shape to lead anyone, Miles, but you are. And again, this is this element of the entire Marvel universe pushing on Miles Morales to become a leader, which I just don't. And I think it's kind of interesting to see that like every writer who's writing Miles sees him shy away from taking that up, which to me is similar to what Peter was like in earlier elements of his career. But at any rate, the art on this was really awesome. Might arguably have been the best art that I saw this week. But I'm glad that I kept this on my list, that I didn't fall off just because Zdarsky left. And it would be an interesting world to see, me being able to enjoy what Zdarsky does on Daredevil, but also being pretty pleased with the creative team who came in behind him and his team and took this book over. So did you happen to read this, Peter, Stephen?
Yeah, I did, and I did enjoy it a lot because I did like the emotional moments with Miles and Peter, because I liked how Peter said that I gotta sacrifice myself in order for him to survive, and he has to go. And
Right.
I thought that was interesting, but it also kind of contradicts what Miles wants to do in the Spider-Geddon issue, where he doesn't want the inheritors to get killed, because it's weird that Peter wants to kill Moreland.
Well, I didn't
And
take it that Peter wants to kill. He specifically
oh,
wanted
it seemed like to me he wanted to kill him.
Well,
Yeah.
I think Peter, unfortunately, having faced him these 3 times, knows, hey, if I blow up a gas station with him in it, it's going to put a hurt on him, but I know that it's not going to kill him. So I just felt like that's what we were seeing a lot of.
Oh, okay.
So what was your best thing that you read this week, Stephen?
My best thing is Mr. Miracle number 12, which is final issue of the series. It's written by Tom King and Mitch, and the artist is Mitch Geralds. I think that's how I'm saying it. But yeah.
So I'm very curious to hear about this, because I would say over the last 2 shipping weeks, at least maybe 3, that you have not been a fan of what Tom King has been writing.
Yes, I'm not really much of a Tom King fan.
Okay.
Oh man, I'm just not into the hype of Tom King. I do like Tom King's Omega Man and Vision,
Okay, right.
but I did not like his I don't like his Batman.
Okay.
And I didn't like Mr. Miracle until issue 6.
Okay.
That's when I started actually liking it, and it started actually being good after issue 6, and I really did enjoy it. And the conclusion of this story is really great. I think it's honestly another. I think it's on a list. It adds on a list to one of his greatest writing books he's written.
Okay.
It's up there with Vision and Mega Man, I think.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
And I think Batman is the weakest link of his writing, to be honest. But I did like this because it tells a story of Mr. Miracle. He's getting ready to have a second child, and they go to see they go to the hospital and see the monogram, and to see they find out they have a daughter. And during the issue you find out that there's a plot twist saying that the that Mr. Miracle was killed by Darkseid, and he's living in a fake world. Like the Darkseid put him into this fake world that he doesn't want to escape. So I thought that was an interesting plot twist. And so all this family that he's having with Big Bart are having two children, and it's just kind of crazy because Mr. Miracle doesn't want to escape because he doesn't want to lose his family that he doesn't have, and the family feels real to him, but they're not actually real, and he's stuck in that dilemma, and he doesn't escape. I mean, he knows he could, but he doesn't want to. That's what the crazy story is, and I thought that was pretty interesting. I like that Tom King actually challenged the character into doing the opposite of what he always does. So yeah, I did like that. It put a really interesting story for me. Oh, your mic is on mute.
Sorry. Okay. Yep. Very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool. Sorry, my contacts are starting to fog up. It's been a long day. Okay, so honorable mentions. Really quick, the only one that I had honorable mentions is our segment of the show where we talk about anything other than the best thing we read this week that we scored with an 8.0 or above, including comics that we may have talked through already in the review segment. So for me, there was only Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, number 312 above an 8.0, with one other exception. Titans number 29 also crested that summit. So what about you, Stephen? Any honorable mentions this week?
Oh, I forgot to say that I give Miss Miracle a 10.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, the honorable mentions is Catwoman number 5, Electric Wars #1, Supergirl #24, Superman number 5, and Hit Girl #10.
Okay, very cool. And let's quickly run down our polls for next week so the audience can start to get a sense of what we may be talking about next episode. I feel like there's some weird stuff going on. It looks like maybe books that may have shipped the final week of the month or something got pulled back to compensate for the Thanksgiving break, because I see another issue of Immortal Hulk in this poll, and we should have already gotten one of those this month, I'm pretty sure. But not to belabor the point, what I will be reading next week, excuse me, is Batman #59, Immortal Hulk #9, Justice League #12, Punisher #4, Spider-Geddon #4, Star Wars #57, and Catalyst Prime Summit #10 by Lion Forge Comics. Additionally, from Steven's pull list, I will also be reading Pearl #4 and Cover #3. Steven, what are you going to be reading this week?
I'm going to be reading Aquaman #42, Cover #3, Pearl #4, Justice League Dark #5, Quantum and Woody #12, Injustice 2, Annual #2, and Doctor Strange #8. And I'm also going to be picking up Justice League and Spider-Geddon and Star Wars.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, very cool. Well, listen up, everybody. We have definitely run late. We've got nothing else for you. If you have any questions, what I would recommend is that you hit us up on our Twitter channel at E2KG Network. Is it Network? I always get confused between what we're doing on the podcasting channel versus
yeah, I think it is E2. It is Network, E2KG Network.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, E2KG Network. Of course, that's what we are on YouTube. E2KG Network, all one word on Twitter. Hit us up on there if you have questions that you want us to answer, or anything else that you would like us. Any comics, like, it's fully fine if you want to pitch us some comics that we should check out, even if it's just for a week. As I keep mentioning, these drop-ins that we do periodically on episodes that we're on, issues that we're not collecting. So with nothing further else to say, at least that can be said intelligibly without me farkling through it. Once again, my name has been Agasically Stamus from Gearworks.com and the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, here with my co-host, Mr. Stephen Laura, with with episode #7 of the What's Your Issue podcast, showcasing the books that shipped the shipping week of 14 November 2018. We will be back next week to talk about the books that have shipped this week, and through a bunch of those that you just heard us run down in our pull list. So thanks again for joining in. Be back here next week. Talk to you guys soon. Until then, take care, stay safe, read the comics that you love.
Oh, I also have a happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
stick that in there too. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. We're out of here.
All right.